Hi everyone that's enjoying the In the Garden block of the month. I thought I would just do a quick tutorial on applique. This quilt project has both cotton applique and wool. And I just wanted to talk to you about how I go about working with both of them. Okay, the first thing, so we have fusible. I do fusible web on the back of my wool and on some of my cotton. And we recommend for this project soft fuse. These are some sheets that I had that I use. They're pieces that I got off of a big roll. We sell them at the shop. We sell a little bit smaller pieces, or you can buy it by the yard. Anyway, what I do first in preparing my fabric and my wool is, well, first of all, we're going to start with the wool. I fuse wool, going backwards for a second. Wool doesn't have a right and a wrong side unless it's a patterned wool. Some do, but this is a solid, so it's the same on both sides. So pick a side, and what I do is I sort of eye up for the block that I'm currently doing about how much wool I'm going to need, so I don't overfuse. You can always add more fusible later, but you know, sometimes you have wool left from projects and you can use it on the next project, and maybe you don't want fusible on it. So I kind of try to eye up what I might need. And you can see here that I had some pieces I put on here, and I have already cut them out. So you're going to follow the directions on the soft fuse. It's very easy. You are just taking the gooey, well, can barely see it, but there's a rough side that has a little glue, and of course the shiny side. You're going to put the glue side down to the side of the wool you want it to adhere to. Remember, this is fusible, so have your Teflon pressing sheet out and ready. Here's a nice one that I keep in the drawer right below where I press. And I be very careful that I don't get any of that on any other place other than my wool, especially not your iron. Although, if you do, there's a great product called Iron Off that does get it off. But if you get the glue on your mat, your wool mat, or any other place, it's kind of a bit of a mess. So plan ahead on that part. But anyway, we've fused our wool, and we're going to leave the release paper on it. Okay, see, this is the release paper, and underneath there's a web that's left. Okay, we're going to leave that on until we need to peel it off and actually adhere it to our background. So I've done that. Next thing I'm going to have done is taken freezer paper that's 8.5 by 11 and put it in my copier, so that I'm going to then take the template that is within each month's pattern. There's a template for all the shapes, and it's also 8.5 by 11. I'll put that on the screen, the glass of my inkjet copier. Be sure you have your freezer paper lined up correctly so that you're going to print on the dull side. The shiny side has that little bit of wax that you're going to then use when you heat to adhere to your fabric. So you're going to print your templates onto your freezer paper, and then I roughly cut them out. I don't cut on the line at all. I leave some space. After I've used them, they will have been cut on the line, but not first. Okay, so the other thing I was going to talk about is some of the freezer paper is thinner than others, and depending on what technique you want to do with this and how many times you can reuse your templates, you know, you might need 4 of these on a block, and you don't need to necessarily print 4 out. You could use the same one over and over again, but after you start taking it off and using it, sometimes it gets a little weak. 4 or 5 isn't a big deal, but if you're doing like 20 or 30, you might want to have a little thicker template. So what I do is I've copied it onto my freezer paper, but then after I've done that, I adhere another piece of freezer paper on the back of this so that it becomes like this. It's almost like cardstock, but it does have the wax. You can see I've used that on wool already. I used it on the wool I just showed you. It's thicker. It'll last longer. It's also going to work much better if you use the starch method, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, that Leah Day does to create shapes. It is going to hold up better. I've used this quite a few times, and it's starting to show its wear. It's about ready to go, but I got a lot of use out of it. So, okay, so we have fused our backside of our wool. Now, say I would like to cut my shapes out. I take my freezer paper templates that I have created, whether it's a single or a double, and I'm going to iron it onto the other side of the wool. And then one side has the template, one has the fusible. I am with my wool because wool doesn't need to be turned under. We're just going to finish the edge off. You can, once you heat your iron onto this, heat the freezer paper onto your wool, you can cut right on the line, and that's your applique shape for wool. Wool is very easy. Cotton, it isn't difficult, but there's several ways to do cotton. Backing up for a minute, depending on, I didn't talk about fusing cotton yet. If you decide that you would like to do your cotton pieces raw edge applique, which means you're not turning anything under and making an edge like this, it's just literally raw but controlled, I would fuse the same fusible, this soft fuse, I would fuse it onto the cotton pieces that I'm going to use. I fuse that on there, leave the release paper on, and then I would use my shape. Now this is one, now for example, I haven't cut this, pretending I haven't cut this out yet. I haven't used it. So this is how I kind of trim down from when I print it. I'm going to put that on there, lightly iron that so that the freezer paper adheres to the fabric. If I'm going to do raw edge, just like wool, I can cut right on the line. And then I've got my shape, and when I go to put it on my cotton, or if I'm going to put this on the wool flower, for example, I've got my shape. I just peel off the release paper and I fuse it down, and then it does, the edge has to be finished off to some extent because this is going to ravel a bit, even though it is stabilized with the fusible. So you're either going to need to raw edge, like machine zigzag around it. You could do invisible thread, or you could do a thread you want to see on intentionally, or you could do even a little bit of hand embroidery on the edges. So that's an option with the cotton. The other option is, say you aren't going to use fusible because you want to do some type of a rolled edge, whether you're going to do a needle turn or you're going to do this other method, which this is from the Applipop, which I'm going to show you in a minute, which is kind of a fun little tool. Or you've made a shape that's going to come out, it could be round, it could be oval, similar to this, with the back folded like that using starch. That's Leah Day's method. Neither of these has fusible. So then what you're going to need to do is, here's your shape, and you're going to have your background. You're going to need to finish this edge somehow, and it could be a light whip stitch underneath. You could do a very pretty invisible applique under there. That's up to you. But what I wanted to show you was this Applipops, and I talked about these at the beginning, the very first episode I did about needful things for the project. They really are fun, and you're not going to use them a lot in this project. They're just a tool you have, just like a ruler. You have it when you need it. They are circles. So whatever block you're working on, give it a size up and see if there's an exact circle. There happened to be one on this very first block in the very center. So I was able to use my Applipop shape. So what you do is you find the metal piece that is going to be that finished, okay? And so when you do that, so I found out that this piece here was the shape, the outside shape, this outside shape was this is the finished piece that's going to go on the cotton or the wool in that case. So you find the washer that's that size. Then you find one size up, and you have two different rings with these. I don't have the other one in front of me here, but this Apple Pops comes with this nifty shower curtain hook, I call it, and all these little washers to keep together, and a nice little pouch. We sell these at the store, and they're awesome. So you're going to find one size up from the size you want, okay? You're going to take your unfused cotton, and you are going to lay your big piece, your bigger washer down. You're going to put right side on top of that washer, and you're going to lay the washer that's the size you want on the bigger washer, and you're going to slide it right in there. I think you could see me where I did that, okay? Hot iron, a starch brush. We sell these at the shop too. These are Missy from Traditional Primitives and designed these. They're great. You fill them with liquid starch. It has a great brush, and I've had this one forever. It lasts forever. You do need to wash it out when you're done using it. If you're not using it often, you need to clean it out. Don't leave your starch in there. But we sell these. So what you're then going to do is you're going to take scissors, and you're actually going to cut. You see, this is the other side, okay? You're going to cut in here to, I think it's about 1/4 of an inch around, and you're going to cut all the way around, kind of a nice circle here. And you know, if you're guessing what I'm going to do is, and it doesn't have to be fancy, I'm going to turn this over onto the metal, and the metal, when you heat it, is going to help press it. But we're also going to use starch. Okay, so I've roughly cut that. This is garbage. I use a little finger stiletto. You could use a ironing cot over your finger, because the tip of the iron is going to be what's going across this to and we're going to put some starch on this, and then we're going to press it, and it's going to come out looking like this at the end. Okay, so what you do here is you take your starch brush and you starch just a little piece. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. And then I use this finger to hold down, move this out of the way here, to hold down what I'm going to currently starch. Okay. Hopefully you can see that with the tip of your iron. And this metal's going to get hot. Okay. So I'm going to tell you, I burnt my hand after. It tells you to leave these rings cool for like 15 minutes. They aren't kidding. But I starch this really well with my little brush, get it kind of wet, and then I'm holding it kind of, you hear it sizzle? That's what you want to hear. With the tip of my iron, and you see how I'm making a circle there and folding it in? I'm going to go all the way around with this. Okay, all the way around. Takes a few minutes, can't be in a hurry, but you're going to be so happy when you see the circle that comes out. Okay. And Missy Carpenter from Traditional Primitives also made this little finger doohickey thing here, kind of extension of your finger. And I know she did it out of necessity, because I'm sure she burnt herself a few times and said, man, I got to come up with some invention that saves my finger. And it's an adjustable piece. We sell them in the shop. We don't have any right now, but we certainly can get them if you're interested. I think they're pretty cool, actually. I got one right away to use it. I've had it a number of years. So you kind of just keep turning and going around. And then when you realize you've gotten all the way around, you don't have to starch it again. I kind of just go and make sure everything is in the right direction here. And the metal washer helps with the heat of the iron. You see, if I leave it on there, it makes it flatter, gives it more of a crisp edge. So after I've gone around once and starched it and laid it down, I go around again. Give it some heat. Okay, so that's done for now. Very hot. That's what the other side looks like, but I'm telling you, very hot. You're going to let that cool at least 10 to 15 minutes. Ask me how I know, because I burnt my hand being anxious to get it off of there. But this is what you're going to come up with. When that's cool, you take the big ring off, and of course the smaller ring is inside in here. You're going to just peel back a little bit, pull that ring out, and you've got this lovely circle. And then what I do is I gently just hit it again with the iron on both sides, and you've got a lovely round shape. So this is a great option for any circles, and not just in this block of the month. You could use this anywhere. They're fun, and they're pretty exact. So now what you would then do if you had this piece is, now you've got to finish the edge somehow. So most likely you're going to pin it like I did here. I pinned, this is one I did, well, no, actually, this is the one I did with apple pop here. As you can see it, I'll move my iron out of the way. I did this with the apple pop. And so I then put it on my wool. I had a little applique pin in here, a small little Karen K Buckley, and I stitched as best I could around the outer edge. Now you could also still do a decorative stitch. You could do an embroidery stitch. You can also do it on the machine if you wanted, and it would be turned under versus the raw edge, which would be the other option that we talked about. So that is if you have a circle. If you have a shape that is not necessarily a circle, but it's still a shape, like this one, okay? This one I use double freezer paper, and I decided that I wanted to do this method, well, this type of method where it's turned under already for me. So I went online and I looked up Leah Day, Leah Day, D-A-Y. She is a really phenomenal young lady, and she has a lot of great videos. And the one that I watched to just kind of refresh my memory, because I've done this before, it's called How to Make a Perfect Circle Applique, and it's her Quilting Basics tutorial number 12. What she does is, where's my fabric? Okay, here it is. All right, so here's my cotton. All right, what she does is, on this wrong side, not fused, it's gonna not this is not a fusible, not fused at all, takes her template and she irons this on here. And I've used this template quite a few times. I'm not sure it's going to press on, I should say. Oh, and it did. Okay, see, even then. Let it cool a minute. What she does is similar to the apple pops, but a little different. There's no metal. She will then go and cut 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. I do a little better with 1/4 of an inch around, all the way around, okay? And then again, with your finger, or one of these rubber heat resistant finger cuts. After you've cut that, what she does, same thing. She cuts around here as the other, all the way around. And then what she's going to do is use that same starch method, but without metal. And she's going to turn it under and use her finger as she goes around to make the shape. A little more challenging with an oblong type shape like this, but anyway, I kind of start this going here a little bit. And don't get ahead of yourself when you use this method, because if you have too much starch going on, it doesn't do you any good. So anyway, let's see here. Come over here, and you use the tip of your iron, and your finger, okay, your little stiletto or a rubber cot, okay, and you then go ahead, maybe about 1 inch at a time, and spend some time again, because this is pretty important, and you want to hold it down, and you're going to work your way all the way around the circle or the shape, whatever it is. You know, works mostly with circulars, ovals, I guess any shape really that you can work with. And it takes a little learning here. Her tutorial is very good, teaches you a lot, gives you some tips and things of how to work with the tip of your iron and really pull it back towards your, see where I'm pulling my finger back here and the finger extension and making that shape. Anyway, this takes a little bit of time. I'm not going to do the whole thing on the video here, but I just wanted you to see this technique, you see, and you'll have the same thing. And I have a little point here. So, you know, you can go back after, smooth your point a little bit, restarch it, make it a little rounder. It's a learning curve, but it's a fun one. And then when you're done, you let it cool a little bit. All the way around you've done it, let it cool. Press it again, and then press it on this side, let it cool. Take your piece out, and you've got a piece just like this. And then you would adhere it to your wool or your cotton, just like you would this one. So those are the two, and here, this is, I love these. This is like called the unveiling. You get to take the pieces out when they're cooler. And there's what you have. And then I'm going to turn it over here. Well, actually, first, I guess we go just like this. And you could hit it with a little starch again. I always keep spray starch as well around, so you could hit it with that. You just want it to make it as flat as you can. I love my wool pressing mat. We also sell these at the shop. If you haven't found one, found their fun and their use and how great they are yet, we have them at the shop. So those are the different ways that I do the applique. The last thing I was going to show you here is a piece of cotton that I did fuse. Okay, this turned out to be I'll move my iron here, the stem here, and it didn't need to be biased because it's straight. Bias is when you need a curve. Not going to waste my time making something I don't need. So what I did was I took that fabric. I knew I'm going to fuse it down because this small piece, I wasn't going to do any type of a needle turn, a turned edge. It was too small. I'm just going to raw edge stitch it. So I fused the back with my soft fuse like I did here. And I will cut out, I'll put my template, which would be for those stems, long piece, on here. Cut it out, peel my back off, and fuse it onto my cotton. Remember that pressing sheet. And there you go. And then I'm going to finish those edges with, I'm not sure. I love to embellish with Valdani and floss, so I may do that there, or I may machine stitch it down with an invisible. All depends on what I feel like at the time. Anyway, that is the applique part of this block of the month. If you have any questions, call the shop, 540-377-9191. I'm Kim. I'd love to talk with you. If you need a little private lesson, you're welcome to talk to me, and I'd love to have you come in, and I'll work with you one-on-one and get you going with this. Stay tuned for the next video. It's going to be on using the bias maker and making bias stems. Thank you. Happy sewing.